Hi everyone, hope everyone's doing okay. It's taken me quite a while to get around to doing a vlog around this chapter of the Squiggly Career, and that's because this one is all around values, which is something that I have found quite tricky for quite a long time actually, of thinking, well, what are my values? I already read this book earlier in the year and I'm revisiting it and really trying to do all of the activities and give it some thought. And actually I'm still finding that values is something that does take a lot of reflection. So I guess one of my biggest wins from this was reading Sarah's story in the values chapter and thinking about the fact that actually she worked with a manager who had grappled with values for 15 years and herself has taken 8 years and only just added another value in the last 18 months. So this isn't about a tick box exercise and necessarily getting it right. It's probably going to take quite a bit more reflection for me. However, I have found it really useful to think about it. The values are introduced as unique attitudes and beliefs that drive us. And it's the things that make you, you. So our career DNA as well is another way that Sarah and Helen describe it. But essentially it's what matters most to us and it's what motivates us and what drives us. And what we need to do is identify what is important to us and apply it to day-to-day life. So what they do first is talk about the fact that values help us to do a number of things. So actually, if we know our values, then we're going to be able to live by those values. So we'll actually be able to be ourselves at work, which obviously takes a lot less energy than it does to be someone else. And it means that we can be much more comfortable with other people as well and more confident, more productive. It also means that we can be more empathetic because we can try and understand other people's values. And actually it can be useful to know what's important to our colleagues and understand what's driving them so that we can work more collaboratively together. And then finally, one thing that I found quite fascinating actually, a really great point here, is that knowing our values can really help us to make better decisions. So around 50% of people consider a career change at any time now. And if we know our values, that can really help us to choose the right direction rather than being distracted. And Sarah and Helen refer to these as distracted by the shiny objects. So it might be about salary, might be something else that's tempting us. But actually we can use our values as a compass to make sure that the decisions that we're making are right for us. The chapter does go on to explain how values are formed and 3 distinct periods in childhood really where we start to form those values and where we get the values from. And then it moves into some exercises that we can do to start to identify our own values. So I've had a go at all of these and I think they're all going to be quite ongoing. But first up, one thing that I find really insightful is the reflecting exercise, which is about looking back on career highs and lows and thinking about how you felt, what were you doing, what emotions were happening for you then, and then, you know, what triggered those emotions. What was it? Was it a line manager that impacted on how you felt? Was it about a team? Was it about the way that you were working? Was it the job itself? Was it the environment? So loads of things to think about. And then once you've done that graph, actually thinking, what are the themes? What words have come up more than once? For me, what I found is no matter what I was doing really, there's always been an element of learning alongside and growth. So particularly in earlier roles where I perhaps wasn't in a job that I was happy with, what was seeing me through were other things that I could see the potential. So maybe I was at uni alongside, I went out and did a master's later on in my career, or maybe I was in a secondment role that was allowing me to grow. There's quite a variety on there, but that's certainly something that I started thinking about, of how important growth is to me and what's led me to it as well. When did I feel like I needed to get that growth? From that activity, you can start to think about, well, what are the career must-haves? What are the absolute have-nots? It must not have this. So that's something to think about there in terms of reflecting on career so far. Then thinking about spotting, well, what's important to you? So that's quite a nice way of thinking about values. Values can sound difficult. If you think what's important to you and then break it down into what's important to you about the people you work with, what's important to you about the work you do, what's important to you about the organisation you work for, and what's important to you about your environment. And just a bit of a brainstorm. And for me, what was most useful with that exercise was actually thinking, where did I write the most? So it wasn't so much what I'd written, although that is useful, but actually I'd written the most on the people that I work with, which in turn has made me realise that actually that's possibly the most important thing for me. So thinking, what did you write the most on? What did you fill in first? Might give you a little bit of an insight into that as well. Then we looked at a series of words existing and scanning those words, trying to get a bit of a feel of what's important for you right now, what feels like it fits with you in terms of values. And from that list, I probably had 6 or 7 words that I picked out. And then, of course, we need to review everything and think about prioritising. And to prioritise, the book asks us to pick 10 words from all of the work that we've done that I've just explained to you, and think about right now, which ones feel the most important to you. So 10 words. And then there's a quite a complex compare and prioritise exercise to get us to compare all of the words and start thinking, well, what is more important? If freedom is more important to me than meaning, then I need to prioritise freedom, and meaning drops down the list, and you compare every single word. And that can result in a list of 4 core values. So I have got there, I've got 4 values. I'm not 100% confident that I've got the right 4 values. I've added another couple at the bottom that I'm still toying with. And actually what's making the difference for me is starting to think about defining the values. So Sarah and Helen talk about how important it is to kind of interrogate the values yourself before you share them with anybody else. So think, have we got the right ones? What do they actually mean? So each of those words will mean something different to different people. So to use me as an example, where I'm at the moment with a couple of mine, is defining meaning and purpose, which kind of sound quite similar on paper, but I mean quite different things by both of them. So I'd like purpose as in giving me a why, and knowing why I do what I do. Why am I doing it? Why does it matter? Meaning for me is almost like finding meaning, and exploring the meaning of everything, really. I'm very much around thinking about why everything happens. So they do feel different for me, but I definitely need to do a little bit of work on there. So I'd be really interested to hear what you think of the vlog, as always. This is very new to me, but also I'd really like to hear about the work that you're doing with your values as well, and any thoughts you've got on anything that I've covered and how we can maybe help each other with this one. But all in all, it's been a really interesting chapter, and it has been really insightful. I think you can probably tell I've done a lot of reflecting with it, and I'm not quite there yet. So I think it's really key that all of us bear in mind that our values aren't necessarily going to be a finished object, but let's at least think about what's important to us and help those values to guide us. Thank you for watching. It's a little bit longer this week. I hope you've enjoyed, and I will see you all soon. Take care.